So with SummerSlam over for another year, I thought I'd just do a quick roundup, just finish off the series of videos that I've been doing about SummerSlam recently, just by putting my thoughts together on some of my favourite SummerSlam matches of all time. These aren't in any particular order, apart from maybe the last one, which I do generally consider to be one of my favourite matches sort of all time, regardless of the show, but definitely my favourite SummerSlam match of all time. You probably noticed from this that I'm more of a fan of the older sort of Hogan era of wrestling. I mean, as much as I love the Attitude Era, there's just something about that period from sort of the mid 80s to the early 90s that I just thought WWE were putting out some fantastic stuff at that time. So that was obviously kind of reflected in this list. Although having said that, I guess the first match I'll talk about, it's actually from a relatively recent era, 2009, with the main event, CM Punk versus Jeff Hardy. First thing I'd like to say was that I was really happy that this main evented at the time. I mean, you had Orton versus Cena and some other, I think it was like an ECW title match and then the WWE title match. Decided to go with the World Heavyweight Championship match, Punk and Hardy as main event, and I thought that was just the right thing to do. There's something about CM Punk at that time, and Jeff Hardy as well, that kind of just rekindled my interest of wrestling a little bit. I'd taken a bit of a hiatus from it, kind of started to get back into it around about 2009 when some of my flatmates at uni were watching Raw on Sky Sports. Decided to start watching it again, but wasn't really that keen until I got into this feud. I mean, CM Punk won the Money in the Bank, cashed in against Jeff. CM Punk turned heel, and there was just some really good stuff back and forth. Great dynamics of the feud. You know, CM Punk as the straight edge heel, and then Jeff Hardy as the guy who's kind of struggled with drugs throughout his life and his career. Really good stuff what they put together, and this match was brilliant. I've gone back and watched it, several times. Never really get tired of it, to be honest. Brilliant spot at the end with Jeff coming off that really enormous ladder onto CM Punk on the announce table. CM Punk getting the win made sense. Jeff was kind of on his way out at that time. It was just a great match. I mean, the way it ended as well, with Undertaker kind of appearing from nowhere, launching off into a feud between CM Punk and Undertaker. Just really well put together. An example of really good storylines and really good storytelling from the WWE in an era where they weren't considered to be at the top of their game in terms of writing storylines and building feuds. And I suppose credit has got to go to the two people involved in it. I mean, Jeff, obviously, great in the ring, but is obviously seen as someone who's not particularly gifted on the mic. But I thought he held his own in this feud. CM Punk kind of carried it most of the time in terms of the promo work. It all culminated in Jeff kind of retiring and from the WWE, and it was just a great way to kind of finish off this feud, really, and really launch CM Punk into a genuine kind of World Heavyweight Championship picture. So I always remember that as a great SummerSlam match that I like to go back and watch. Next up, again, I mean, these aren't in any particular order, but one that I would guess features on a lot of people's lists is the 2002 match between Shawn Michaels and Triple H in that unsanctioned match that they had. Shawn's first match back after about 4 years of being off. Shawn, for me, is always one of my favourite wrestlers. Probably the favourite if I had to choose right here, right now. It's a time when nobody really knew if he was coming back or not. 4 years is a hell of a long time to be out. I mean, if you consider, people are wondering whether Daniel Bryan's going to come back full time, and that's only been a couple of years, if that. So someone being out 4 years and then coming back to fight in a street fight or unsanctioned no disqualification type match against Triple H is really impressive in itself. Obviously, Triple H was the only person that I guess Shawn could have really done it with. Triple H knows Shawn really well. They're obviously best friends outside the ring. Triple H obviously was going to carry Shawn throughout the match, but he didn't really need to. I mean, Shawn just looked like he hadn't lost a beat. And it just proves to me why he's, I believe, undoubtedly the best in-ring worker of all time. And personally, for me, one of my favourite superstars of all time. It's always a shame when you go back and think about the initial building blocks of the Attitude Era. You know, Shawn was heavily involved in that, and it was a shame that we didn't get to see him sort of fight guys like Austin and Rock and you know, Mick Foley in that period from sort of late mid '98 to 2002. But yeah, I mean, this match, I mean, it's one of the best that these two have ever had together. A great year, I think, for this feud. I mean, they feuded for quite a long time. This was the start of it. I mean, unless you're counting the Elimination Chamber, which involved a lot of other people. Unless you're not counting that, then you have to say that the SummerSlam match here in 2002 was the best one they had. Really well worked. You know, love Shawn Michaels, I always will, and this is one of the best examples of why I and so many other people have so much respect for him. Next up, there are actually two matches on the same pay-per-view. I'm going to talk about one now and then leave the other one till the end. So, again, involving Shawn Michaels, HBK, SummerSlam 92, Shawn Michaels versus Rick Martel. And this was a kind of a favourite match of mine for other reasons than maybe the other two I've just mentioned. The stipulation around this was that neither guy was allowed to hit each other in the face. Sensational Sherry was involved in this. I mean, she'd been Shawn Michaels' manager, and they were both kind of fighting for her love and affection. And it's just a great example of in-ring psychology. It's an example of how every match doesn't have to be a technical 5-star classic. I mean, these two are probably capable of that anyway, but just the stipulation just added something to this match that made it really fun. Sherry was fantastic, her involvement in it. You know, from that era, you know, Sherry is one of the names that I always kind of think back on as someone who really helped the product at that time, and there's no difference here. Another match involving Shawn Michaels at the start of his career this time, against Rick Martel. Really well worked. Crowd seemed to love it, and you know, it's just good contrast to the match that I will eventually talk about, which was the main event of that pay-per-view. But just a good sort of contrast of different styles and sort of showing how varied wrestling can be and how many different people can enjoy it in different ways. So that always goes down for me as one of my favourite SummerSlam matches. And then number two, this is a match that kind of gets overlooked a little bit, I think. Not criminally overlooked, but overlooked a little bit. And I think it's just really worth talking about here. It was actually the main event of the first ever SummerSlam. So it was Mega Powers, Hulk Hogan, and Macho Man Randy Savage against Mega Bucks, I think they're called, yeah. Mega Bucks, Andre the Giant, and Ted DiBiase. This came off the back of that really great WrestleMania 4 show where Savage won the belt at the end of the tournament against DiBiase. DiBiase had Andre in his corner looking out for him throughout the show, and then eventually Macho Man brought out Hulk Hogan. The two of them, you know, became the Mega Powers, which was a great tag team for that time. You know, the two biggest stars in that company at the time being put together as a tag team. Really good stuff. There was involvement from Miss Elizabeth as well, obviously being aligned with Mega Powers. She kind of got involved right at the end in a really subtle way, which, you know, wasn't overdone, and it's just a great way to use her as an involvement. I suppose it really kind of kicked off that sense that SummerSlam doesn't always have to be the WrestleMania of the summer. It doesn't always have to end on sort of a big 1-versus-1 winner takes all, you know, title match. It can be a kind of like an exhibition type pay-per-view sometimes as well. Like, you know, this year we had Brock and Undertaker, which was a big sort of money draw, which wasn't for any particular title or anything. You know, 2005 you had Hogan and HBK. There's different examples. I think this was the first example of it. You know, I mean, the four, you know, no doubt about it, four of the biggest stars in the company at that time. But it was just a match to showcase all of them together. It kind of just showed how good the product was at that time and how deep the roster was. And yeah, I mean, again, it's not something that you'd go in if you were looking for great in-ring technical work. But you had a little bit of that. I mean, Macho Man could definitely go. DiBiase had technical knowledge and background. Yeah, just a good showpiece and a good way to introduce the SummerSlam cards concept into the WWE audience. So it's one of those things where you think, would we still have SummerSlam and the success of it today if that main event hadn't delivered? So yeah, I definitely think it's worth mentioning that match. It's a great one to go back and see. I would definitely recommend it. And I don't think there's much surprise in my choice of main event. I guess arguably the two most celebrated SummerSlam cards of all time, 2002, obviously a lot of people talk about, and then 10 years previous to that, 1992. And I know what you're thinking, this isn't just because it came from Wembley, England, although, I love the fact that it did come from London, and can't wait for them to, to hold a big full pay-per-view there again, because, you all know how passionate the British crowds are. Whenever they go and do Raw and SmackDown, the crowd involvement's always great, and just imagine how big that would be on a kind of the scale of a WrestleMania or another SummerSlam. But the main event of that match was what the whole show was built around: the British Bulldog versus Bret Hart. And this was for the IC title. This was a time when the WWE were putting in just as good storylines into the IC title, if not sometimes better than the world title. The IC title had enough drawing power. It was an important enough belt for them to actually build a whole show around, and it became the main event of one of the best SummerSlam matches of SummerSlam cards of all time. Obviously, the dynamics of it with the British homegrown hero against Bret Hart, arguably the biggest star of the company at the time. The family involvement as well. I mean, you had the Hart family split between Davey Boy, who was married to Bret's sister, and then Bret's brothers kind of siding with Bret. David Boy's wife kind of just sitting there. They kept kind of showing her face as like a concerned, didn't want either of them to get hurt necessarily. And the match was just brilliant. I mean, you wouldn't expect any less out of these two, like really gifted technical wrestlers. I guess you knew what the result was going to be. I mean, like even the WWE wouldn't have had that match end with Bret Hart going over. But I don't think anybody minded that. The crowd were just enjoying the match for what it was, and then when the inevitable came, they still popped really, really loudly. It's just a great moment. Great moment for British wrestling. British Bulldog, just going down as one of my personal favourites of all time, and rightly so. And then, gotta love Bret Hart and what he can do in the ring. So, yeah. That is the first match that I always think about when people tell me, or ask me, what are your favourite SummerSlam moments and matches. It's always got to be 92 main event, Bret Hart and Davey Boy. So those are my top 5, I guess you'd say, SummerSlam matches. Let me know what you thought, or if you want to let me know about your favourite matches below in the comment section, or do a video response. If you like what you've seen so far with my SummerSlam series, then like this video, subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you all next time. Thanks.